Daredevil has always been one of my favorite characters since I was a kid. He was always up there for me, right next to Wolverine, Spider Man, The Flash. I always thought that he was an amazing character. I was introduced to him at a young age because my dad really loved the Punisher, and obviously, whether you like it or not, Punisher and Daredevil are like hand in hand. So I saw him in a few comics, and I was pretty interested in him. My dad even showed me the trash Ben Affleck movie that honestly wasn't great, but it got me really excited as a kid because I thought he was super cool. And I don't know, I just realized that he was way more complex than I thought. It wasn't until I was older, though, that I realized that Daredevil is actually just a complicated character, and I know people say that about most characters, but truthfully, I think that he kind of gets a little underplayed here. And let me tell you why. I often feel like I hear a lot of people say that Daredevil is a Batman knockoff or like a Spider-Man knockoff because, Batman is kind of grumpy and more serious tone and he has the no-kill rule. And Spider-Man and Daredevil kind of cover the same areas, and Daredevil's main villain is also a Spider-Man villain, which is Kingpin. So I feel like a lot of times they often get compared to each other, and they're both in New York. So I feel like a lot of people, just right off the bat, dismiss Daredevil as an interesting character or even a character to just look at and read and watch. And I feel like, honestly, I'm tired of this disrespect that Daredevil is getting because I feel like he's a lot more than just a knockoff of another character or a grumpy Spider-Man or just Marvel's Batman. I feel like he's more complex, and I'll go through why right now. The thing that sets Daredevil apart from me compared to Spider-Man is, Matt Murdock is an adult, and he's also a lawyer. And this is important because while other superheroes, believe that their vigilante actions are just and right, Matt uses Daredevil to further his legal battles. Matt has this belief and this idea that the only reason that he's Daredevil is because it helps further his legal battles. He often, in the comic books and in the TV shows, uses Daredevil as a tool to help him further his investigations and also do some things that obviously the police can't do. So this is one reason why Daredevil feels justified, is because, him being Daredevil is seen as a way to help him in the legal system, which he is strongly a believer in. And he believes that, in order to keep a criminal down, it isn't just about beating them up, it's about actually getting them in the court of law. And so therefore, I think that's very interesting because most superheroes, we really don't see them take this route of going into the legal system. Obviously, it's a special case because Daredevil is, a lawyer, and also I know that She-Hulk is also a lawyer too, but I feel like it's more of a concrete thing for Daredevil, and oftentimes it definitely connects with the main story going on, is, him being Daredevil, listening in on conversations and getting that intel that obviously a normal cop couldn't do. Another thing that differs from other superheroes is Matt's beliefs. As many superheroes as there are, I feel like Matt Murdock's, obviously being a Catholic man, is such a huge part, an integral part to his character. Therefore, that's the reason why he believes that killing is, a no-no, because it's a sin. It's a sin to kill people. He uses this barrier, his beliefs, as a way to keep him from going over the edge. It keeps him in line because oftentimes Matt in the stories is constantly having a moral conflict. He's having a issue with, his beliefs, the law, and his rage. His rage is a huge part of Matt's character. If you've read or watched anything about Daredevil, you'll know that Matt Murdock is just an angry guy. He's just super angry. And I think this is really interesting because I feel like they use Matt's rage as a way of conflict. It's an interesting way that the story kind of has a bump in the road. I feel like many characters have some sort of anger arc, like Spider-Man with the black suit, and obviously there's the evil Superman, but this is a constant thing that Daredevil constantly is fighting with, is his own rage and his own feelings. Growing up, Matt's life was super hard. His mom died, his dad died, and when he saved an old man, He went blind. So growing up, Matt has always felt, though, that every time he's done something good, there's always been something really bad that happens to him to offset it. So Matt, at the beginning of him being Daredevil, uses it as a way to release his rage, blow off some steam, and he honestly does like beating people up. And that's an interesting part of his character, is that Matt likes beating up people. The reason why this is an integral part of the story is because you oftentimes don't know if Matt's beating up a dude half to death because he is a good guy or because he likes it. And personally, I think that this struggle is super interesting because, see, where most characters and most heroes often have a struggle with the outside forces, Matt's stories are most of the time a moral dilemma where, you know, he often struggles with his anger and whether or not he wants to kill people. And he often struggles with whether or not what he's doing is, you know, within his beliefs, his Catholic beliefs of beating up people. And I often think this is really interesting. Matt's struggles emotionally is just really fascinating. And I feel like no other superhero really has this in their constant storylines. While sure, like I said before, they often do pop up from time to time, Matt's constant struggle with whether what he's doing is against his religion or against the law, which obviously it is something that's super fascinating to me, and I feel like it's oftentimes overlooked with the character of Daredevil. This is why I love Daredevil as a character, because his struggles feel real. As someone who follows beliefs, I can understand the struggle of doing the right thing and staying true to what you believe in the face of a situation that isn't fair. Oftentimes, Daredevil is faced with these impossible choices that often kind of put into check his beliefs and his morality. You see, while every hero has this struggle of, you know, putting the bad guy away, Matt Murdock has some extra layers to it because of his beliefs. You see, it's super easy for him to kill the Kingpin, but the problem is it would go against everything he believes in. You know, Batman has this rule where it's like, you know, if he kills people, then he'll just be as bad as the criminals. And while there's obviously some more complexities to that too, and I bet you I'll get somebody in the comments that'll explain to me why. Thank you, Batman Lover 84 in the comments. Appreciate the comment. Although Batman has these similar things, I often feel like Daredevil has a upfront justified reason for these struggles. You see, because of his beliefs, he can't just kill people, and if he kills criminals, then everything that he stands for is out the window, and everything that keeps him in check is out the window. Oftentimes in the comics, there's times where Daredevil will be like, you know what? Screw my beliefs. Screw my morals. I'm just going to go kill people, and I'm just going to beat people up, and I don't care. And when Matt does this, the people around him and himself don't know who he is. You see, although it's super easy for us to be consumed by our emotions and our urges and our anger, it's just not worth it. And I think that's why the character of Daredevil is so interesting, because these are constant struggles he deals with on a day-to-day basis. And this is why I feel like it makes him different from every other character, because of these morals, these laws, because Matt is a Catholic man, and because he wants to do things the right way. When he doesn't, or when he, you know, says screw it to his beliefs, it's a loss. And I know that sounds weird, because it's like, what do you mean? He kills the criminal, he puts the bad guy away, who cares if he's beating him up? But you gotta realize that just because he does that doesn't mean it's a win. And this is why I like Daredevil. Because with other heroes, we really don't get to ever see the moral aspect of beating up people. We don't get to see the moral aspect of, you know, is this right? Is this wrong? And sure, we do sometimes, like I said, there's plenty of examples. But with Daredevil, every time that he kind of loses his way, we as the reader kind of get this icky feeling in our stomach. Because we know, although Daredevil is technically doing the right thing by putting criminals away, it doesn't feel great to see him go off the deep end and just be consumed by something that he struggles with. I know many people probably don't think of Daredevil this way, or maybe not see him this way, or maybe this is all too on the nose, but I feel like oftentimes in discussions of Daredevil, nobody ever really talks about how these feelings and these emotions, and every time he loses his way, it's almost like we see a little bit of ourselves. And like I said, maybe I'm just maybe this is all just me talking to myself, but seeing somebody who's so strong in what they believe in, seeing somebody so strong in the idea that the law can work and that what we do on a day-to-day basis affects people in a positive or negative way, lose his way, makes me feel as though there's no hope. But obviously this is where the turn is. You see, when every time Matt loses his way, when every time it seems Matt's finally going off the deep end, he comes back. He rises up from his mistakes, and he rises up from those failures, and he comes back the Daredevil we know. And I think, honestly, this brings some hopeful light into the world and into the comics, because it gives us the idea that although we've fallen, although that we've walked away from what we once believed was true, although we had these rules set in our lives and we had these ideas of not being consumed by our emotions, we can always come back to the right road. We can always do the right thing. And although it's a constant struggle every day with every choice we make, by us doing the right thing, we're choosing the right choice. We're choosing the one that, at the end of the day, helps us sleep at night. Now, whether or not you think this is worth it, it's entirely up to you. But I think what Daredevil often tries to tell us is that these struggles, these moral questions that we have, the idea of, is this all just worth it at the end of the day? Is it even worth following some sort of code? I think it answers our question by saying, who would you even be without the code? Are you the code? Are you your morals? Or are you the rageful, emotional monster underneath? And I think that's the question that constantly is being asked by Daredevil comics. Are we just the monsters, our urges, our desires? Are we the good people, the consistent people, the people that constantly wake up every day and choose to do the right thing and help the right people, even when it's not worth it? Truly, which ones are we? And that's the question I like every time I read a Daredevil comic. That's the thing I like to think of when I read a Daredevil comic. And I know it sounds heavy, but I think it's honestly an interesting question that is asked constantly. And I feel like in today's world, it's constantly being asked. It's constantly being challenged. And whether or not you believe in some higher being, or whether or not you believe that the law is right, everybody has some sort of code in morals. So the question is, at the end of the day, is it worth it? And I think every time I read a Daredevil comic, I find out it is. And if you've never read a Daredevil comic, I'd highly recommend you read it. Or if you've never seen the Daredevil Netflix show, which is now on Disney Plus, so it's confusing to say that, I'd recommend you watch it. And I hope this inspired you, and I hope this gave you a little bit more insight into what Daredevil means to me. And I think the question that it's constantly asking us as the reader, and it's constantly challenging us. And if this was a confusing mess, I'm so sorry. I'm recording this kind of late at night, and this is just honestly a passion project. But if you want to see more superhero analysis stuff, please let me know. I've been something. And I just wanted to let you guys know, have a good day. And if you had a crappy day, I'm sorry. But stay fearless. Oh my gosh. Stay fearless and stay true to yourselves. Love you guys.